Hi everybody. So now we will move on to chapter 4 of Charlotte's Web. Right? I'm going to share my screen and yeah. Okay. 1 second. There we go. There's an issue. Just 1 second, please. This. Okay. So yeah. Chapter 4, it's titled Loneliness. Now, the third chapter was called Escape because Wilbur ran away. Now, because Wilbur is feeling lonely, the chapter is called Loneliness. Okay? Now, grab a pencil, underline the words I tell you to underline, and read loudly with me. Okay? My cursor will move, and so will you read, right? The next day was rainy and dark. Rain fell on the roof of the barn and dripped steadily from the eaves. Now the eaves are the curves on the roofs are called eaves, right? The rain fell in the barnyard and ran in crooked courses down into the lane where the thistles and the pigweed grew. So these are plants, right? So the writer is talking about how the rain is falling from the sky. Now, if you look carefully at this paragraph, it is a very beautiful descriptive writing paragraph, and you've done descriptive writing in school, right? So the way in which the writer is describing how the rain is falling is how you can also do descriptive writing. So if you ever want to do descriptive writing, just read this paragraph and then take inspiration and write, okay? Rain spattered. Spattered means splashed, underline spattered, against Mrs. Zuckerman's kitchen windows and came gushing. Gushing means to flow very fast out of the downsprouts. Okay. And, whatever the narrow holes were there. So it came gushing out of the downsprouts. Downsprouts are kind of drains. Okay. Rain fell on the backs of the sheep as they grazed in the meadow. Okay. Now, the meadow is again the flat land. Okay. When the sheep tired of standing in the rain, they walked slowly up the lane into the fold, right? So it is raining, the rain is falling on Zuckerman's kitchen window, and the sheep are grazing in the rain and they're coming back slowly. Rain upset Wilbur's plans. Now, Wilbur's plans were destroyed. Wilbur had planned to go out this day and dig a new hole in his yard. He had other plans too. His plans for the day went something like this. So now the writer, E.B. White, is trying to describe Wilbur's plans. If you asked, why was Wilbur feeling lonely? Wilbur was feeling lonely because his plans had been disrupted. His plans, which he had taken so long to plan, they were cancelled. Why? Because it was raining. Okay. That is why he was lonely and he felt bad. Breakfast is 6:30, skim milk, crusts, middlings, bits of donuts, wheat cakes with drops of maple syrup sticking to them, potato skins left over, custard pudding with raisins, and bits of shredded wheat. So these are the variety of things that Wilbur was looking forward to eat. Okay? At what time? At 6:30. Breakfast would be finished at 7. From 7 to 8, Wilbur planned to have a talk with Templeton, the rat that lived under his trough. So, beneath Wilbur's food storage lived a rat called Templeton, and he wanted to talk to Templeton. Talking with Templeton was not the most interesting occupation in the world, but it was better than nothing. So, you see, the options Wilbur had were very limited. Either he could eat or he could talk to Templeton. And even though he did not, like Templeton very much, he did not have anything better to do. So from 8 to 9, Wilbur planned to take a nap outdoors in the sun. But now, was the sun there? No, it was raining. From 9 to 11, he planned to dig a hole or trench. Trench is a very deep, a deep hole in the ground, technically, and possibly find something good to eat buried in the dirt. From 11 to 12, he planned to stand still and watch flies on the boards, watch bees in the clover, and watch swallows in the air. Okay, so this is what Wilbur's plan was. At 12 o'clock lunchtime, middlings, warm water, apple parings, meat gravy, carrot scrapings, meat scraps, stale hominy, and the wrapper of a package of cheese. So Wilbur was looking forward to eat all of these things. Now, what happens is that Wilbur eats a thing called middlings, right? And what are middlings? Middlings are tiny, tiny pieces of tiny, tiny, you know, tiny, tiny pieces of wheat. Sometimes, wheat leaves are also mixed, right? So it's basically like fibrous wheat, which is there. Okay. So, Wilbur, if you see the past chapter, middlings has been mentioned a lot of times. Okay. So he really likes middlings. And from 1 to 2, Wilbur planned to sleep. Okay. From 2 to 3, he planned to scratch itchy places by rubbing against the fence. From 3 to 4, he planned to stand perfectly still and think of what it was like to be alive and to wait for fun. So now the pig was thinking, he was thinking about his life. He had so much time in his life that now he was thinking about his own life. Okay. And then at 4 would come supper, skim milk, okay, fat free milk, provender, leftover sandwich from Lurvy's lunchbox, okay. What else? Prune skins, okay. And what else do we have? A morsel of this and a bite of that. So, prune is a kind of dried plum which is there, right? And provender is basically hay. Okay, it's brown hay which is eaten by animals. And then fried potatoes, marmalade is orange jam, marmalade drippings, little more of this, a little more of that, and a piece of baked apple and a scrap of upside down cake. Wilbur had gone to sleep thinking about his plans. So Wilbur was really, really looking forward to doing all of these things. Okay. He awoke at 6 and saw the rain, and it seemed as though he couldn't bear it. He was done. He could not tolerate that his plans were all cancelled now. I had everything all beautifully planned out, and it has to go and rain, he said. For a while, he stood gloomily. Gloomy is very sad, okay, indoors. Then he walked to the door and looked out. Drops of rain struck in his face. His yard was cold and wet. His trough had an inch of rainwater. So instead of food, it was full of rainwater. Templeton was nowhere to be seen. Are you out there, Templeton? Called Wilbur. There was no answer. Suddenly, Wilbur felt lonely and friendless. When his plans were cancelled and Templeton was missing, Wilbur felt lonely. One day, just like another, he groaned to say something very sadly. I'm very young. I have no real friend here in the barn. It's going to rain all morning and all afternoon, and Fern won't come in such a bad weather. Oh, honestly. And Wilbur was crying again for the second time in 2 days. At 6:30, Wilbur heard the banging of a pail. Banging is the loud sound which is made by something, being hit. So he heard the noise made by the bucket. Lurvy was standing outside in the rain, stirring up breakfast. Come on, pig. Stirring is like to take maybe a spoon or something and just mixing it up. Okay, underline stirring and underline pail. By this time, you should know what a pail is. It's a bucket. Come on, pig, said Lurvy. Wilbur did not budge. He did not move, okay? Lurvy dumped the slops and scraped. Scraped means to scrape off, to remove all of the food which was on the walls of the bucket, okay? Uh, and walked away. So he emptied the bucket into his trough, and he noticed that something was wrong with the pig. Wilbur didn't want food, he wanted love. He wanted a friend, someone who would play with him. He mentioned this to the goose, who was sitting quietly in a corner of the sheepfold. Will you come over and play with me? So, whom did Wilbur say this to? Wilbur said this to the goose. Sorry, 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 Sonny, sorry, Sonny. So, Goose said no. I'm sitting on my eggs, 8 of them. Gotta keep them toasty warm. I have to stay right here. I'm no flibbity ibbity gibbet. I do not play when there are eggs to hatch. I'm expecting gooselings. So, she was warming up her babies and she could not get it from the eggs. Well, I didn't think you were expecting woodpeckers, Wilbur said bitterly. Now, see, you know, he's sad and because he's sad, he's responding like this to the goose. Okay. And Wilbur tried one of the lambs. Will you please play with me? So he first asked Templeton. Templeton was not there. Then he asked the goose. The goose said, I'm busy. Then he asked whom? He asked one of the lambs. And the lamb said, certainly not. Absolutely not. In the first place, I cannot get into your pen as I'm not old enough to jump over the fence. In the second place, I am not interested in pigs. Pigs mean less than nothing to me. So now the lamb here is being rude. Okay. What do you mean? Less than nothing? Replied Wilbur. I don't think there is any such thing as less than nothing. Nothing is absolutely the limit of nothingness. It is the lowest you can go. It's the end of the line. How can something be less than nothing? If there was something that was less than nothing, then nothing would be nothing. It would be something, even though it's just a very little bit of something. But if nothing is nothing, then nothing has nothing that is less than it is. Now you see, Wilbur is talking about nothing. So here, this paragraph does not make any sense. Wilbur is trying to logically convince the lamb to talk to him. He's just talking on and on and on. See, the lamb does not want to talk to him, but Wilbur here is talking about nothingness. This entire paragraph, Wilbur is speaking meaninglessly. Why? Because Wilbur is lonely. Okay. Oh, be quiet, said the lamb. Go play by yourself. I don't play with pigs. So the lamb was rude to Wilbur. Templeton is not there. Goose is busy. Lamb disrespects Wilbur. Okay. Sadly, Wilbur lay down and listened to the rain. Soon he saw the rat climbing down a slanting board that he used as a stairway. Okay, so the rat is climbing down, it's climbing down from a wooden board and he's using it like stairs. Okay. Will you play with me? Templeton asked Wilbur. Play? Said Templeton, twirling his whiskers. Now, whiskers are tiny mustaches. Okay. Play. I hardly know the meaning of the word. Well, Wilbur said. Wilbur. It means to have fun, to frolic. Okay. Frolic is to, be happy, to walk happily, to have fun, right? To run and skip and make merry. I never do those things if I can avoid them, replied the rat sourly. So he's not responding very positively. I prefer to spend my time eating, gnawing. Okay, gnawing is like nibbling on things. Okay, spying and hiding. I'm a glutton. Glutton is very greedy, but not a merrymaker. But I'm not. I may be very greedy, but I'm not someone who has fun. Okay, right now I'm on my way to your trough to eat your breakfast since you haven't got enough sense to eat it yourself. And Templeton the rat crept stealthily. Crept means to walk very quietly along the wall and disappeared into a private tunnel he had dug between the door and the trough in Wilbur's yard. So he had a secret passage from the door to Wilbur's trough where Wilbur's food was. Templeton was a crafty rat. He had things pretty much his own way. The tunnel was an example of his skill and cunning. The tunnel enabled him to get from the barn to his hiding place under the pig trough without coming out into the open. He had tunnels and runways all over Mr. Zuckerman's farm and could get from one place to another without being seen. Usually, he slept during the daytime and was aboard. Aboard means, you know, on the farm only after dark, right? You see, if you look at these two paragraphs or one paragraph, this is about Templeton. Who was Templeton? He was the rat. What kind of rat was he? He was a glutton. He was very greedy, but he was not a merrymaker. He did not believe in having fun. Okay, so if you get a question about Templeton the rat, what are his physical qualities or what are the qualities of Templeton the rat? Templeton was a very clever rat. He was a glutton because why was he a glutton? If you're asked for a reason, because he himself tells Wilbur that I am a glutton, that I am greedy, but I don't have fun. And one more thing, he was very cunning and sharp and crafty. Why? Because he had made secret tunnels, okay, which were all over the farm. So if he wanted to travel from one place to another, he could take his tunnel. Now, is a rat a pet? No, a rat is not, a part of the farm. Zuckerman doesn't want a rat. That is why Templeton was hiding, and he was so smart that he survived in a place where the owners did not want him to live, but still he was there. Okay, so this is about what Templeton does. Okay, and his qualities. So this is important, right? Wilbur watched him disappear into his tunnel. Okay, and in a moment he saw the rat's sharp nose poke out from underneath the wooden trough. He reached the trough. Cautiously, Templeton pulled himself up over the edge of the trough. This was almost more than Wilbur could stand. On this dreary means, you know, on this hopeless rainy day, to see his breakfast being eaten by somebody else, he knew Templeton was getting soaked out there in the pouring rain. While Templeton was eating, it was raining, so he was getting soaked wet. But even that didn't make him feel better. Friendless, dejected, and hungry, he threw himself down in the manure and sobbed. How was Wilbur feeling? He was feeling friendless. He was feeling dejected. Dejected is hopeless, and hungry. And he fell into the manure. He jumped into the manure and he started crying. Late that afternoon, Lurvy went to Mr. Zuckerman. I think there is something wrong with that pig of yours. He hasn't touched his food. Okay, so this is chapter 4, where we learn about Wilbur's loneliness. We learn about how many times Wilbur tries to talk to other people. We learn about Templeton. All right, bye.